Okay. So hello everyone, and thank you for being here today. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I will present what is pen test and give the example of web pen testing. So my name is Gabrielle Bodbol, and I work as a pen tester at a company in Montreal called Okiok. I am also a blogger and a podcaster, and I am the leader of Women of Security Paris and co-organizer of Women of Security in Montreal. So I was recently honored for my career and contribution to the cybersecurity community by being named one of the top 20 women in cybersecurity in Canada. And so you can follow me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and have a look at my blog. So why pen test? Well, when I was a developer, I was not sure that the app I delivered were safe. So this is how I started to look at cybersecurity. And so during my search, I found about pen test, and I completely fell in love with this. And that is how I decided that I would become a pen tester. So this is it. So to realize this project of becoming a pen tester, I relied on a concept called apprenance in French, which is Philippe Carré's concept. And so my project involved 6 steps. You have the definition of apprenance here. My project involved 6 steps, such as e-learning, CDF, learning expedition. So in order to document my approach, I created a blog to share my experience, and I also built an analysis grid of skills resulting from the whole project. As a pen tester at Okiok, but I can still say that my desire to learn remains as strong as ever. So what is offensive security? So to explain offensive security, I need to talk about red team and blue team. So red teams are offensive security professionals who are experts in attacking systems and breaking into defenses. And blue team are defensive security professionals who are responsible for defenses against cyber attacks and threats. So offensive security is when you put yourself in the skin of an attacker and try to break into systems. So you have probably heard we have probably heard both of those terms, like hacking. Ethical hacking is broader than pen testing. It includes all hacking methodologies. Pen testing is similar than ethical hacking, but the main purpose will be to find vulnerabilities in the targeted environment. So what is pen test? Penetration test is the process of identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities in a system. And during a pen tester uses the same techniques of a cyber criminal. And the ultimate goal of a penetration test is to identify and assess the client organization risks of exposure. So there are different types of pen tests, and I'm going to show them quickly every type of pen test. So first of all, external pen test. In an external pen test, we are going to try to break into the target system from the outside of the network. So there are different methods for doing that. And for example, the employee of a company X must use an application to take their holidays. So if the login page of this application is available on the internet, it could be hacked, and this will expose the sensitive data. So we will try to connect to this application, and this will give us a first access in the client's network. This is one way to do it, but there are a lot of other ways. So we also have vulnerability assessments. So this is when we use an automatic scanner to scan customer IP address, and we analyze the findings and we validate the results manually. Also, there's internal pen test. This is when you attempt to break into a system within the customer network. So once at the customer location, you connect with an Ethernet cable and you try to become network administrator. And an administrator has all the access on the system. So it's like someone manages to steal the personal data of all the people who work in the company. And so we can also check the Wi-Fi security. So we are going to see if it is easy to connect, if we are going to check if the Wi-Fi password is strong enough, and if the technologies that are used are reliable. And because some technologies are depreciated because they are vulnerable, and a secure Wi-Fi will avoid a hacker to look legitimate in a network like any other person in the network. So there's social engineering like phishing. So we can propose phishing campaigns. Some OKIOC do this, they propose phishing campaigns. And we will do what an attacker would do. And we will be able to know how many people have read the email, how many people clicked on the link. And this will help the targeted company to be able to implement a better awareness policy. There's also physical intrusion. So we are going to try to break into a building, and we can make scenarios to try to manipulate people to let us in, or break in at night, for example. So we have several objectives to achieve, like get into the data center of a company, or get to the office of the director, or things like this. But if you want an example, I made an article on my blog called Codename 2300 about one experience I had of physical pen test. So this is one experience I had, but this is a broad example. So I think it could be similar to what people would do in a physical pen test. So we also have denial of service tests. So these are going to be, because different side attacks can lead to denial of service. So what is denial of service? Denial of service is when too many people try to access an application at the same time. And so the applications becomes unavailable. So we will test those attacks to evaluate the resistance of the system to those attacks. There's also a red team. So the objective of a red team will be mainly to check the ability of a company to detect attacks rather than focusing on finding a lot of vulnerabilities. And there's web also. So we can test web applications, and we are going to try to access sensitive data, to become an administrator, and we are going to do this by using the common black hat attacks. So an example would be SQL injection. So this is an attack that allows to get information from the database. So the database contains all the information needed to run an application. But I will explain this more precisely later. So we are now going to talk about the phases of a pen test. So there are different phases in a pen test. When we test, we do not go straight to the attack phase. We need to plan it with the customer, to define the scope and take care of the legal matters, like sign NDAs and everything. So this is going to be the planning phase. Then we gather the information about the target. How does it work? What are the use technologies? And this is going to be the discovery phase. And after we go to the attack phase, we take many, many notes in the process, and we gather as much proof as possible. So this is the attack phase. And finally, we produce a report with explanations on how to reproduce the flow and how to correct it. Sorry about that. Okay, so what is a typical day in the life of a pen tester? So it would be like you open your mailbox, you send an email to the customer whose systems you are testing. And it is very important to be careful with emails and read them at specific hours because you obviously get a lot of those. Sometimes you have calls to prepare new projects. And once every 2 weeks, you have a meeting with the team. Oh, at least this is how it works at Okiok. And we talk about our projects and how to be more efficient in our work. And most of the time, you just test applications or I don't need to say that you learn something new every day, because every day you see different technologies. And I wanted for this talk to make a list of things I like and I don't like, but there's not really things that I don't like. So I'm just going to point out things I particularly like. So those things are learning from my peers, because I get to learn a lot from my colleagues, and getting to discover new technologies and try things. And I mean, I just love hacking. So is it for you? So if you like to know what happens behind the curtains, if you are very curious, if you like to learn new things every day, and if you want to make a difference and contribute to cyber peace, so then this is the perfect thing for you. So what are the must-have skills? So as I said earlier, you have to be curious. You need to question everything. You need to be creative. You have to be persistent, because if something doesn't work, you have to try something else. You have to be very organized, because there's a lot of things to take care of. And you need to love learning and sharing. So share your knowledge with people, ask them about what they are good at, and you gain a lot by communicating with others. I have learned so much by working with others. You have to be open to new things, observe how people work. This helps really a lot to improve your own work. And something that was really helpful for me when I was looking for an opportunity as a pen tester is my blog. This is like a real portfolio of who I am and what I do and know. And employers, they love to see this kind of things, and the blog is perfect for this. So it is not easy, and you have to make your like little voice inside shut down and let yourself be yourself. But this will set you free and to make a blog and that look like you. So a blog is not mandatory. I mean, of course, you can, for instance, write articles on LinkedIn about things you do or things you like. You can share CDF write-ups. You can explain a concept you're passionate about. It can take many different forms. So it doesn't have to be a blog. It just have to be something you write about or anything. And what is also good is to go in the wild and meet people from the community and get involved. Also go to conferences, talk to speakers, attendees, and create an association with your friends, etc. There are plenty of ways to do this. So I'm going to As you know, web pen testing is a type of pen test, but most of business have a website, and even people now have a website as well. So those websites can be a nest of vulnerabilities. So in order to keep people safe, you can help them by testing their website. And in this example, I'm going to explain some web vulnerabilities and present some tools and talk about what I have seen in some real context. Okay, so as you probably know, OWASP is a non-profit foundation that aims to improve the security of web applications. And they have a top 20 of the most found vulnerabilities that you can see here. And we will talk in details later about the first one, specifically SQL injection and directory traversal, and the seventh one, cross-site scripting. I chose to demonstrate those because they are very visual. So this is for the demo. I used Mutilide that I installed by Metasploitable 2. And you can also install Mutilide alone on a web server if you prefer, but this is a vulnerable app, so be careful with this. Like, don't put it online or anything if you don't want your server to be hacked. Also, before I show you the demo, it is very important that you are aware that you must always have the authorization of the owner of a website to test, because otherwise it's illegal. So the machines I used in the demo are made for this purpose. So please don't do anything bad in real life. So we are going to talk about vulnerabilities and tools. So the first one is cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting is an injection of a malicious code that will allow, for example, to retrieve an administrator sessions cookie, which is basically like an ID card of a session as an administrator, for instance. So if you are connected to an application as an administrator, this session cookie will be like your ID card, like as if you had to show in a building something. So injection points are the inputs allowing the user to enter information. SQL injection, so this is injection of SQL code that can be used, among other things, to extract information from the database or to bypass a notification page. And directory traversal, so this is accessing the file system, including files that an unprivileged user is not supposed to see. And so for the tools, we have proxies. So we have like OWASP, ZAP, and Burp Suite. And the main objectives of those proxies will be to intercept, analyze, and modify queries. So Burp Suite, OWASP ZAP is open source, and Burp Suite is proprietary. There's a free community version and a paid pro version. So as we navigate through the target application, the proxies will detect potential vulnerable elements, and we will be able to analyze them and validate if they are indeed vulnerable. Also, there are also tools called fuzzers. So those tools are used to send a series of payload or to try to brute force administration pages, for example. So like this is going to scan, and you will be able to try every possible URLs, and this will give you an example of, this will give you an overview of the website if you find those. And it can be done with Burp Intruder or DERP. And you can also use them to inject payloads, a lot of payloads at the same time. You can try many different things. We can also try to brute force an authentication form. And as I said before, with DERP, you can list the directories of the website with a predefined list of words that you can find plenty of word lists online. So this is going to be a little video I made. I'm going to share it full screen. So this is going to be a stored cross-site scripting. So this is Mutilide, and so you have all the top 10s in vulnerability that you can try. And here, as you can see, there is, if you put something here, you are going to have your input showed right here. So we are going to write a payload to try to inject JavaScript code in here. And so usually we just try to pop up an alert. So and then when you save the blog entry, you get your alert you try to put. So this is vulnerable to start cross-site scripting, and everyone who will go in the page will see this alert here. And so it's been, as it's been interpreted, you don't see it, but if we go to see the page source, we are going to see that it's exactly as if it's been made by the developer. So this is really like in the source code of the application. So now I'm going to show something about SQL injection. So you can use SQL as a state SQL injection to bypass logins. So you have this very, very famous payload that we use a lot to try this. And here I'm just copying and pasting it out. And so you see. And so now this is directory traversal. So this input is very interesting for us to try to see and browse and see if we can browse inside the web server. So we are going to try something that also is very common in directory traversal. It's like to try to see the files where you have all the users stored from the server. So this is called /etc/passwd, but these are not actual passwords. This is just the list of users in the server. And now this is a demonstration of Burp Suite. So and this is an example of request interception. So I just clicked on the home page, and so this is going to send me to the home page. and we have a cookie here which says username admin. So okay, so you can either choose to forward it or to drop it. So, and of course you can modify it in the on the go like this, or you can just do it after. There's something called a repeater, which will give you the opportunity to try again and again the same request and modify things on it and see what you get when you input things. So this is going to be a further example. So we are going to use there here. I just prepared my comment so that I just had to paste it. And so basically all the code here, like 200, are pages that exist. And we have like a PHP mayhem, which is something we should investigate. We have many different things that we could, you know, investigate and see. Every time you have a 200, basically, if it have a strange title like administration or something, you should try to see what it is. As I said. Yeah. And yeah, you definitely have to investigate this PHP myadmin the page. Okay, so an operating system that is made for pen testers who wants to, mostly for pen testers, but for people who work for cybersecurity professionals. So I really encourage you to investigate and to see how it works and to try the tools and everything, because this is how you can get to learn a lot of things. So this is it for this part. So what about real life? So what did I see in real context? I have seen a lot of cross-site scripting. Once I had to test this website that was globally very well implemented, but there was this feature of file upload in which it was designed to be I built an empty HTML file and I added the XSS payload in it, and the exact same XSS payload I showed earlier, actually, and that was it. I had that it was vulnerable to cross-site scripting this way. I have seen also some SQL injection. For example, once the tool we usually use to dump databases, because there's an automatic tool that will do this for you. This tool was not able to find the injection, so I could not dump the database automatically. So we found a SQL function that could show the last request made to the database. And so as this was a Boolean-based SQL injection, we had to check every char one by one to find the request, because this is going to, you need to try to a char to see, is it the A, and is it, and so this is how we where we are able to see. So, but this is very long because you have to try each char. So we made a script that ran all night because the requests were really big, and we got part of the request. So that's it for the real context. So those are resources about the vulnerabilities I talked to you earlier. So for cross-site scripting and for SQL injection and directory traversal. And those are useful resources because if you want to learn pen test, it is very important to practice. You can find a lot of very interesting resources, either directly online or by creating a lab, like the thing I showed you in the demo, which is basically a lab. And it is very hard to find, you know, it's very hard to find a first position. But I would say we are fortunate in this field because hiring does not only depend on a diploma, because cybersecurity is a field where most of the time skills matter more than academic knowledge. So this is not the case everywhere. So this is why I say you are very lucky, and especially today. I mean, you have to have a lot of diplomas today to get in a job or anything. But in this field, we can negotiate a job by emphasizing what we can do. Okay, and that's it. So if you have questions, I can answer them now.
Yeah, we have a couple questions here. First one is from Luisa. What does code 200 mean?
Okay, code 200 means that the page is available. So you have different codes. Codes 400 are basically the ones that would be forbidden. This is just a convention, a way to see how to, I don't know how to put this, but it's like a way to show that how a page is available or not. So 200 basically means that the page is available and that it's not moved, or it exists. The page exists. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess an opposite of that could be the infamous 404 error code, like web page not found, could be the opposite of that.
Exactly.
Good question, Luisa. Thank you. Next question is, do you typically pen test actual systems running in production, or do the clients provide you access to a test system of theirs?
It depends. I test on production systems, but most of the time we ask customers to do a pre-production system so that an environment is dedicated to test, and that is the closest as possible to the production, because we don't want to mess with the production most of the time. So we do sometimes test on production, but we try to avoid it. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, how long did it take you to get here? I presumably that means this stage of your career.
So I started my blog around two and a half years ago now. So I was a developer before, but I would say, yeah, if in around 2 years you can, and even 1 year, because I was hired 1 year after my blog, you can find a first position. You have to be bold, because when I applied for this job opportunity at Okiyok, I had no experience, and actually the job posting was for someone who had 10 years of experience, but I still send my resume. So you have to try. I mean, what's the worst that could happen is that you don't get an answer or anything, but if you try, I mean, you only can succeed.
Okay. Next question is, do you have to be a coder before you enter pen testing?
No, you don't have to. This is good to know scripting languages or things. This is definitely a plus, but you don't have to, and you can learn things on the go. You can just train yourself and everything, but you don't need to be like a senior coder or anything. Just you can always learn on the go.
Michael says, thank you for your informative presentation, Gabrielle. How are system passwords best protected?
Hmm. Well, you have to don't store your password in plain text in the database. And I would say the best thing I could advise you is to look up OWASP documentation, which is very, very complete for developers who want to secure their systems. I can provide you a link afterward if you need.
Great. And I would personally recommend various exploits against Windows 7. Those are very beginner-friendly password hash dump exploits. That's where I started practicing that kind of password security topic. Question from Dave Cho. What is the value of a certification such as OSCP?
Okay, so it's a very good question actually. I think that it's good to have the OSCP because this is actually a very good certification to show what you can do. This is basically based on your skills because you are able to. I don't know if all of you are familiar with OSCP, but this is an exam that will give you access to bugs that you will have to hack to be, and you have a certain number of bugs to hack to be able to be certified. So this is like a practice test, and this is not like other tests where you have to answer to multiple choice questions. So I think it's very good to have the OSCP, but I don't think it's mandatory to have a first position. I mean, I was hired without my OSCP, so, and I don't have it yet. So this is not mandatory because you can still show what you can do in other ways, but this is very definitely a good thing. I mean, I used Hack the Box, I use CTF platforms and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Gabrielle. Certifications are one way to show your skills, but there are so many ways these days to show off your talents. Next question is, if you are working from home, do you ever get flagged by your ISP or authorities for trying to pen test a web app? And what should you be aware of and prepare for?
I've never been flagged because we, as I work with my company, we have a special VPN for pen testing. So we don't have, I don't use my personal IP address. So I'm good with it.
Question from Jessica. What are some red team interview questions?
I absolutely don't know. I'm sorry. So maybe I could try to find a resource for you online, but I don't have the answer. Sorry.
Maybe, Gabrielle, what kind of interview questions have you dealt with as your career progressed closer to pen testing?
Well, I had a lot of questions about my motivation, about what I like to in pen testing and everything, and also what happens a lot for interviewing on about pen test and everything is you can try. Sometimes you will have exercises to do, and most of the time it's CTF. So this helps to know how to be familiar with CTF.
Okay, and Rodney asks, how did you gain your skills in penetration testing? Did you pursue self-study, certifications, or college or university?
So to become a pen tester, I divided my project in different steps, and I documented everything on my blog actually, but I went to conferences. I went to I did some CTF. I went to events like workshops and things like this. I went to summer schools also. These are often hosted by universities or and you have lots of free places or a lot of great places to learn, like CSNP. You can have a workshop here, or there's a lot of way to learn. I mean, you don't have to go back to university if you are not comfortable with this. You have just to, I made the program of my self-training by looking up at university curricula and trying to find classes like online. I used a lot of MOOCs, massive open online courses, and with those conferences and everything, and this was it. But I made, if you're interested, I made a list of resources on my blog. I can share it in the chat if you want, the link to my blog, and there's a lot of resources on how I train myself and resources to train yourself as well.
Yeah, and Rodney, there's also lots of great blogs out there that are beginner friendly, and they introduce ideas for standing up your own home cyber range, just using maybe 2 virtual machines. So there's always places to start with blogs, lots of great articles out there that walk you through some beginner scenarios. Jin Kim asks, what's the best at-home program or tool that you can use to practice pen testing?
Oh, the best? I don't know. There are a lot of tools that you can use to practice pen test. Like I would recommend using, as I said, using and exploring Kali Linux. And you could like use Metasploitable too to practice different things, because there's this web server with these vulnerable applications, but you also have other vulnerability on the box, like it's full of things to try. So yeah, you have different tools. You have also platforms like Hack the Box, like Try Hack Me, and they will introduce you to concepts and different things. So you have a lot of things. I can only refer you again to the list of resources I have on my blog.
Yeah, I think a great like beginner starting point is Metasploitable that comes bundled with Kali Linux. I think that's a great early like beginner friendly way to test for skills. Another question here is, what are some of the best resources you track to keep up with current hacker trends and exploits?
The resources to keep the updates on exploits and everything. I like to look at certs, the website of certs. Like you have the US one, you have like lots of different websites for this. I also follow a lot of cybersecurity professional on Twitter, so they often post things, and I like also to follow vendors like Portswigger, or Portswigger is the vendor who creates burp suits, so and things like this. So it's actually very helpful to follow people who work in cybersecurity, because they often share things that they find and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, and Gabriel, I'd love to see, I don't know if you have this already, but some kind of blog that walks the reader through the steps that you took in your demonstration today. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I can try to find it. I made something like this with the steps and how to train yourself. I actually have an article called How to Train Yourself, so I can try to find it for you.
That would be excellent. I personally love to reproduce a lot of these scenarios myself. I find it's a great way to learn. Next question here from Jalil. What are the best programming languages to know in order to be successful in cybersecurity or pen testing?
It's definitely good to know some Python. Also, well, JavaScript and SQL language are good to have, but there's also a lot of resources for this. So it's good to know the basics, but you don't have to be an expert. But if you know like some languages like Python, if you want to develop your own exploits or something, this is definitely a good way to go. So I would say Python is already a very good start.
Yeah, I would definitely second Python. It's so ubiquitous across many cybersecurity career paths. Such a great language to learn, and it has so many useful tools and libraries. Definitely a great choice to study. Next question from Johnson. How often are vulnerability assessments typically performed?
You mean like in a specific company, or how often do we get a project with vulnerability assessment?
Doesn't quite say here.
Well, we do have, because sometimes it's always good to test your system, and customer like to test it before with automatic scans and everything before doing a big pen test, so that they get, you know. But yeah, we have them. Oh, we have them often. We often have vulnerability assessment. Yeah.
And Kevin asks, secrets and passwords are hard coded in the source code. What are some ways to discover hidden hard coded passwords?
So depend on the context, but what I can say is that some automatic scanners, they do aggregate all the comments, and you can like navigate in the comments and try keywords to find some things. So this would be a good way. Or you can just like try to look in the source code yourself, like straight away. It depends. Yeah, that really depends on the context, but some vulnerability scanners will aggregate the comments for you, and you can have a look in this with, if you want something like more fast.
Yeah, I imagine that's a common task in testing software for security issues, is scanning for passwords. Johnson asks, what would you would you rather recommend setting up a home lab using machines from VulnHub?
Yes, it's. I mean, it's they have a lot of great machines. I'm not very familiar with VulnHub, but I heard that a lot of good things about them. So I think they have a lot of great machines to learn. And also, if you are not really comfortable with deploying your VirtualBox and everything, I mean, it can be a lot to take in at the first time, like getting familiar with VirtualBox or VMware and everything. You can like just go to TryHackMe, and they will also have, you know, box that you can do, and you just have to connect, and it's much more easier this way.
Diego asks, I recently started assisting with pen testing in my current role. Do you recommend I focus on learning the tools used by my employer, or earning a general pen testing certification like CompTIA or EC Council?
That's a good question. I think that if you try to learn the tools from your employer, you are going to be, it's going to be a good setup, because most of the time, I mean, people use basically the same tools most of the time. So yeah, and well, do not, I mean, the certification is also good. So yeah, but the tools, yeah, I would definitely like learn the tools, try to practice. And I mean, if you do this, this is a good way to get a certification more easily after. So, I mean, the one does not exclude the others. I mean, you can do both, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Gabrielle, going back to your idea on skills versus academics, I think you want to mix up your exposure to hands-on skills and knowledge-based learning. So be sure to think about what kind of activities you'll be doing? Is this hands-on, or is this more theoretical or knowledge-based? I think there's a big difference there in the cybersecurity field. Next question. I have spent many years in social justice work. Do you know how pen testing can be connected to any area of that field or nonprofit space?
Okay, so, legal matters in cybersecurity, I would say that they are everywhere. So you could help a company to make a proper beginning mandates, like I don't know how to say this, but you could be an advisor for a company in the legal matters, because a lot of pen testing company hires people who works in laws and everything. You could work with privacy, like I mean GDPR and things like this. This is also a lot involving laws and everything. So yeah, there are many ways to use your skills as a legal professional.
What can you say about web scraping that is most commonly needed for a data science role, especially for market trending?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for this.
I've done a little bit of web scraping, and I would start with Python. That has lots of great tools for scraping. Take a look at those libraries that you can use. Things like Selenium can crawl web pages and look at specific places. Michael asks, any suggestion for someone working towards their bachelor's in cyber and are changing industries from manufacturing into cybersecurity? What are some suggestions for helping to make that transition?
Follow people. You are not the only one to coming from a different background. So don't worry, like don't be scared. I mean, just follow people who I can't even count on one hand how many people are from different backgrounds. So I mean, in another life myself, I was working in in hospitality business. So this was completely not related to cyber. You have a lot of blogs about how to transition careers and everything. You have a lot of resources like accesscyber.org that have great resources, and also follow a lot of people also cybersecurity professional. I would recommend that you follow them, because they always have great insights and way to and I mean, if you ask questions to cyber professional, they will be very willing to help you. And also feel free to send me a message, a mail. You can contact me on LinkedIn if you have any specific question. I can answer. I mean, sometimes people come to me and ask me questions about specific things, and I can like recommend resources or things to do. So please, I mean, I don't mind, and I'm really glad to help you if you need.
Yeah, great question, Michael. I myself come from manufacturing, IT, and OT. Look into topics like ICS, industrial control systems, and look up a company called Dragos. They pivoted off of ICS to make a whole security practice out of it. So check that out. All right, we've got about 3 more minutes here. Thanks so much, Gabrielle, for answering all these questions. There's so many great topics to cover. We've got time for a few more here. Khalid asks, what are some conferences you would recommend for beginners?
For beginners, you have, actually, I think there's a conference called BeerCon, which is very good for, because this year they are going to make a special for beginner speakers. So I think maybe the topic would be more for beginners also. And conferences for beginners, I would say, I mean, in every security conference, even in DEF CON, or you have beginners topics. It's not always expert topics. So NorthSec, I know that NorthSec in Montreal, they have a lot of beginner topics. Also Hackfest in Quebec and DEF CON, and also Le Hack in Paris. And I mean, there's a lot of conferences that have beginners topic. Just go to cybersecurity conferences, and you will see that most of the time in the abstract, you will see that if it's for beginners or not. But yes, there's a lot.
Yeah, definitely attend a security conference if you've never been. Pre-COVID, I attended RSA, and that was incredible. So many beginner-friendly topics for sure. So check out everything that's just live streaming. I think we just had DEF CON, and that had a lot of great content as well.
Oh, and also I actually saw someone on the chat recommending besides conferences and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of associations like this, communities like this that have local chapters, like Hack the Box has local chapters everywhere, WASP also. So yeah, it's definitely also a good way to learn.
Yeah, actually, B-Side Seattle is coming up this fall. I believe it's all remote, everything right now. So yeah, lots of remote stuff happening. Check it out. Lots of great stuff to attend. Well, Gabrielle, that's about time. Did you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
I would say just go for it. Don't ask yourself too many questions. If you want to do this, it's completely possible. And so do it and listen to your heart.
Yeah, awesome advice. 100% agree. If this is something you want to do, get out there and do it. Try things out, like try out your home lab, try out a CTF, just go see what it's like. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Gabrielle. Awesome presentation and awesome insights on those Q&As there. And so glad we could have you all the way from Canada presenting later at night today. And thank you, all of you, for joining us for our Wednesday webinar. We have one every week, so check out our CSNP Eventbrite, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. We've also got a YouTube channel, so keep an eye out there if you missed any parts of today's session. So great to see you, everyone, and thanks for spending time with us. Have a great night.